Okay, so this is chapter 11 in the general biology, and this is basically about the human body systems. And we are going to discuss the following, which is the general structure of the animal and human body. We're going to do the different systems, including digestive system, respiratory system, cardiovascular system, and the rest of all these systems will go one by one. And this is general biology, so we are not going in depth in any one of those. When you go like further in the in AP1, AP2, anatomy and physiology, you are going to do a lot more details about these systems. So we're going to start with the organization, like uh, heart, circulatory system, cardiac muscle cells. What is the logical hierarchy, which is which way does it go from big to small or from small to big? From big to small. We did that in the very beginning when we mentioned that the body, you can take it either way around. You can start like from the molecular level, like atoms, molecules, organelles, cells. When you put the cells together, you make tissues. You put the tissues together to make organ. You put the organs together to make a body system, and then you put all the systems to make the whole human or even animal body. So obviously, the big is the body, followed by body systems. So in this case, it's a circulatory system is the big one, which contain heart and blood vessels. So heart is one of the organs. You're going down from organ system, which is in this case circulatory system, also known as cardiovascular system, and one of the organs is the heart. If you go inside the heart, look at the tissue, that will be the cardiac muscles or heart muscles. Within the muscles, you will see the tissue, you see cells. So body, body system, organ, tissue, cells. You're going down like this, or you can take it the other way around. Um, we are going to discuss different things, including and the basics of anatomy and physiology. Anatomy is structure, physiology is function. So this is what we're going to do, and they are related to each other. So anatomy is the study of the structure. Just what is this? What is that? Like you can say uh, this is the heart, this is the right atrium, this is the left atrium, and so on. This is just anatomy. What is this and what is that? The different body parts. Physiology is the function of each part that we just talked about. Like if we're talking about the respiratory system, these are the alveoli, the bronchi, the bronchioles, and so on. This is just anatomy. This is bronchi, this is bronchioles, this is trachea, this is larynx. That's it. This is a structure, which is anatomy. Physiology is each one of those. What is it doing? So we're studying the function of each part. What's the function of the trachea? What's the function of the bronchi, and so on. So you go from cells to tissues to organ system to the entire body, or the other way around. If you start from the body contains different systems. Like if you look at your own body, you have cardiovascular system plus respiratory system plus urinary system plus all these systems together. This is the entire body. So body contain organ systems. If you look at every one of these organ systems, just take one of those. In this case, cardiovascular or circulatory system. What does it consist of? Organs. Heart is an organ. Arteries, organ. Vein, and so on. So these are organs. If you go deeper into the organs, like inside the heart, you will see tissues. What are the tissues? The cardiac muscles are the tissue level. If you look in deep inside the tissues, you will see cells. If you go deep inside the cells, you'll see organelles and so on. But we're just going from the body to the cells, or from the cells to the body, and it should go both ways. Um, which organ is your body's largest organ? And which is the longest, for example? The largest, believe it or not, the largest organ in your body is the skin. Even though you think about it like, how about the brain? How about the liver? No, the skin is huge, but you just, if you put it all the skin together, this is the largest, have the largest surface, and this is the largest. The longest, if you think about any organ in your body, it will be the one of the bones, this big bone here of the thigh, which is called the femur. Um, so by going down or going up, you're going up to the from small to big, or from big to small, from cells to body, or from body to cells. If you're talking about the cells, the smallest unit of the body, there are smaller than that. Like inside the cells, you have organelles and so on. But I'm talking about the unit of life. Cells are the units of life. So if you get some of these cells and put them together to make a specific function, remember this, not just cells together, cells to make a specific function, that's going to be called tissue. Otherwise, if it's few cells that's not doing anything, we don't call it tissue. Group of similar cells that's put together to make or to perform a specific function. And when you put them together to do a specific function, you're making a tissue. So what's a tissue level? Bone is tissue, connective tissue, cartilage tissue, adipose tissue, blood is the tissue. Each one of those, in fact, all of these are connective tissues. So when you go to the tissues, we will discuss the details later on, but cartilage is a connective tissue. Bone is a tissue, connective tissue. Adipose tissue is connective tissue. Blood is tissue, connective tissue. So this is the first type of tissues, which is called connective tissue. The second type will be called epithelial tissues, muscular tissues, nervous or neural tissues. So we have different types of tissues. I would like always to take it the other way around. How to know which of your tissues in your organs is connective tissue? I rather do it this way. I start with the epithelial tissues, which is the next one. Epithelial tissues, this is the covering or lining, the covering of your body or the lining of your body. Both of those are epithelial tissues. What's the covering of my body? Your skin, your mucous membrane. Okay, this is the covering, specifically skin. What's lining? Lining means deep inside, hollow organs. Hollow organs, they have an inside layer of cells. This is epithelial. So remember this. What are the epithelial tissues? Covering or lining. Covering your body from outside or lining your organs or hollow organs, specifically from inside. Like what? Any hollow organ. You have a lot of those. The whole digestive tract is a hollow organ. The whole inside is epithelial. The whole respiratory system, even the heart from inside, even the blood vessels from inside. Any hollow organ is lined from inside by epithelial cells and from outside. So it is either lining, covering or lining. Covering from outside, lining the hollow organs from inside. This is one. Number two, nervous tissue. Obviously, your brain inside the skull, your spinal cord inside the vertebral canal, and the nerves that goes out of this. We call this collectively nervous system, or the tissues inside are called nervous tissue. Nervous tissue. So epithelial and nervous. What else? The third one is muscular tissues. And the muscles can be one out of the three. The muscles that attach to the skeleton, like this, my biceps, all of these that attach to the bone, we call that skeletal muscles. Why did you call it skeletal muscles? Because these muscles attach to the skeleton, which is the bone. Skeletal muscle. This is type of tissues. Muscle is a type of tissue. Muscles are three. Skeletal is attached to the skeleton, but this is not 100% correct terminology, or this is not 100% correct to say it this way, to say it's just because attached to the skeleton. Actually, the skeletal muscles are these muscles that have a specific shape and specific cells, and they are the only voluntary muscles. These are the muscles that you control. You decide, I'm contracting my biceps, I'm relaxing my biceps, I'm flexing, I'm extending, I'm grabbing, I'm letting go, I grab something or I open my hand, close my, and so on. All these muscles under voluntary control, and their cells are very big and they are arranged in striated, like what you see here. Yes, we call it skeletal muscles. It happened that 99% of these skeletal muscles are attached to bone, and that's why they call it skeletal muscles. But there is an exception here. Actually, two exceptions. One is the external anal sphincter. The anal sphincter for defecation, there is an internal one and external one. The internal one is involuntary. The external one is voluntary. Internal, involuntary. And the external is voluntary. So the external is voluntary. And if you look inside, the cells are big cells and it's striated. It is a skeletal, but it's not attached to the skeleton. Yes, but it fulfill the basic criteria, same as the external urethral sphincter. So those two sphincter external, the same thing. By the way, just take it as a rule of the thumb. If any time you have two sphincters, sphincter is the muscles that guard an opening, sphincter. Anytime you see a sphincter that there is one internal and one external, it goes without saying. Rule of the thumb. Internal is always involuntary, so it is not skeletal. External is voluntary. Does that apply on everything? Everything. When you see internal and external, it goes without saying. So, meaning the external anal sphincter is voluntary. What was the only one voluntary? Skeletal. The rule apply? Yes. Continue. Look at the cells, very big. Look at the striation. It is striated. That's it. Skeleton, but it's not attached to the skeleton. Yes, it's not 100%. All the muscles of your body that you see outside here that you control are skeletal muscles, but the two muscles that can be confusing, still you have to call it skeletal because it is voluntary and it fulfilled the criteria. Attaching the skeleton is not one of the criteria. It just happened to be. But it fulfilled the criteria. So external urethral sphincter and external anal sphincter, these are skeletal muscles, even though they are not attached to the skeleton. Cardiac muscles, these are the muscles in the heart. That's it. Very simple. Last one, and this is also striated, but the cells are small. And obviously, this is involuntary. If it is voluntary, show me. Stop your heart. Make your heart work harder. Speed up you can't. It's involuntary. So when it comes to the muscles, I will go back to the connective tissue, but I'm taking it one by one. Epithelial tissue, covering and lining. This is one. Number two, nervous tissue in your nervous system, brain, spinal cord, peripheral nerves. Three, muscles. Skeletal, talked about it. Cardiac in the heart. Any other muscle that's not skeletal, not voluntary, and not in the heart, you call it smooth muscles. That's it. It goes by exclusion. What are my muscles inside my stomach? Smooth muscles. Why? It's not skeletal, it's not voluntary, and it's not in the heart. That's it. How about in the intestine? How about the urinary bladder? How about in the reproductive system, urinary system, any other system, respiratory system, anything else, blood vessels, anything else, you name it. It's all smooth muscles. So here come the connective tissue now. Connective tissue is, if you wanted to know what's connective tissue, ask yourself, is that epithelial tissue? Like, let's take cartilage. Is that epithelial tissue? Is it covering the body from outside, skin, or lining from inside? No, it's not. Is your cartilage muscle? Of course not. Is it nervous system? Of course not. That's it. Then it is connective tissue. How about your bone? Apply the same rules. Is it epithelial, covering or lining? No, it is not. Is it muscle? Of course, bone is not muscle. Is it nervous system? Of course not. It's connective tissue and so on. So all these bone, adipose tissue, blood, cartilage, these are just examples. There is also the lymph and other tissues. They are all connective tissue as long as it's not one of the three. And this is how it goes. And by the way, connective, the name is coming from connect because these are not one of the three. It just connect the different tissues together in a way or the other. So this is for the tissues. Now we'll go to the other systems. These are questions that you can ask yourself about breathing, about the body weight, how much of it is water, and urinary system. This is just an introduction. But we are going to actually discuss the exchange with your body and the environment around you. There will be some characteristics that we will discuss. So here come a very important point. Maintaining the normal function, maintaining constant internal environment. What do you mean? I mean, your blood composition should stay around constant, almost constant. The volume should stay constant. The number of cells should stay around. It's not 100%, but around that number. Volume of the blood, heart rate, respiratory rate, urinary system, the amount of hormones that you're releasing, your body temperature, your pH, all of this should stay within the constant level or within the normal range in order to survive. This process of keeping those is called homeostasis. Homeo is homogeneous. Stasis means to keep or to stop it. So you're stopping or keeping everything within the normal range, within constant internal environment. Meaning homeostasis. Let me just give you a practical example. If it is right now, it is cold outside. My body temperature, what's the normal body temperature that you have to know? It is 37 Celsius or 98.6. You will see that all the time. These are basic numbers. So why it's 98.6? How does it stay like this? Like what if it is hot outside? What if it is cold outside? Yes, homeostasis will keep it around that. If it is cold, 98.6 will start to drop, 98.5, 98.4, and then your body system will catch up and it will, now homeostasis is going to increase your body temperature back to normal. What if it is hot? 37 or 98.6 will go up. 98.7, 98.8, your body system will catch up. There are thermoreceptors inside your brain, and they will catch it that's going up, and you will work on it to bring it back down. What is all of this? This is homeostasis, the most important concept in physiology. Homeostasis, to maintain constant internal environment, including numbers, volumes, numbers and volumes. Numbers, body temperature, pH, volumes, the volume of the blood, the volume of the lymph, the volume, the amount of hormone, everything that's happening in your body should work within the normal range, constant internal environment. So if something changes from outside, you are going to return when it affects your body is going to react and return it back to normal. So practically speaking, 98.6, for example, or 37, it's not really like that. It's not that strict. What's happening is 98.6, it goes like 98.7, but you bring it back down 98.6. And then it goes 98.5 and you bring it back up. So it's not a flat line. It goes like this. But as long as it is within the range, this is called normal. And that's why it is not like 98.6. If I measure your body temperature 98.7, I will say, oh, you're having a fever or something. No, this is within the normal range. Okay, we say plus or minus. Another example, the pH, which is acidity versus alkalinity. The pH of the body is somewhere between 7.35 to 7.45. The average 7.45. Is it fair to say pH should be 7.4? No, it is not. It's not correct. 7.4 is the average number. You can go half above and half under. It will. 7.4, 7.42, 7.4. 7.3, 7.4. So as long as you are within the range, which is 7.35 to 7.45, within this constant environment, you're fine. And this is, we call it homeostasis. When the homeostasis break down, you are going to have issues. Example, I give you two examples, pH and body temperature. Here is the third example. Blood sugar should be kept within the normal range, just like everything else. If your blood sugar or blood glucose goes up, insulin will be released, it will bring it back down. If it goes down, glucagon, the hormone, both of them come from the pancreas, insulin and glucagon, both of them. But you secrete depending on the needs. You're eating, your body glucose, blood glucose goes up. You secrete insulin, it will go back to normal. If it goes down, you're not eating for some time, glucagon will kick in, will bring it back to normal. So now you're totally fine. And that's why we always say it's somewhere between 70 and 110. Anything in between is okay, depending on when was the last time that you're eating, what did you eat, and all that stuff. That's why we cannot give a magic number. That will be wrong, because me and you and a third person, I can be like 80 and you're 90 and he's 100 and all of us are okay. So it's a range, not a magic number. So what if the system that I just talked about, which is homeostasis, that's done by the pancreas, what if this system breaks down? What's going to happen then? If it broke down, like if the pancreas is not secreting enough insulin, so body sugar or body glucose going up. Okay, insulin, you need to pancreas, secrete insulin. The pancreas is not able for some reason to secrete enough, so it will go up. Where is the homeostasis? Another scenario for the same thing, you're eating, your blood glucose is going up. Pancreas send insulin. The pancreas is actually sending insulin, enough, but the cells are not responding. If the pancreas is not secreting enough insulin, this is called type 1 diabetes. If the pancreas is secreting insulin, but the cells are not responding for some reason, so responding like what? Like insulin take the glucose and push it into the cells, take it out of the blood, push it into the cells to eat. So now your blood sugar should go back to normal. And if any one of those scenarios happen, the homeostasis is broken down. And now you'll have hyperglycemia, mean the glucose level in the blood goes up, not 110 anymore, it's 130, 150 to 100, whatever the number is, and we call that diabetes. Type 1, if the pancreas is not secreting enough insulin, which happen more in children, kids. Type 2, more in adults, where the pancreas is secreting, but it's not effective for some reason. Most likely, it is the cells are not responding. So that would be diabetes, and it's just an example of how what happened if the homeostasis breaks down. Uh, so the next part is going to be the next system is integumentary system. Integument, the word integument means the cover, the covering. This is a system by itself, which is basically skin and skin appendages. Skin, your skin, and appendages. What's appended to your skin? Hair, nail, and glands inside, like sweat glands that secrete here and so on. Together, this is called integumentary system. Skin and skin appendages. What are the appendages? The other organs, hair, appended to the skin, nail, appended to the skin, glands, appended to the skin. So integumentary system, which is the covering system of the body, is most importantly for protection. This is not the only function. This is the most important function. Protection. Guess what? If you have an injury in your skin, you get infected because you're losing this cover in this area. So the pathogens that's always available there, it just doesn't invade you because you're protected. But if you have even a tiny injury, it will enter in and cause infection. So this is for the integumentary system. And if you're talking about the skin is epidermis and dermis. The outer layer that you can see, I'm touching my epidermis now, the outer layer. Underneath, and the epidermis, by the way, is epithelial tissue, cover. The dermis is connective tissue. Remember the connective tissue? It connects the epidermis to the underneath. This is the skin itself, two layers. So the skin, what else with the skin? You have the hair, you have the glands, like this is the hair, this is the hair follicle, and this is the hair itself. There is a gland here called sebaceous gland, secretes oily secretion to make your hair smooth and soft. Here is gland. Another gland here is sweat gland. This gland here secretes to the hair shaft as it is growing, but this open to the surface, which is the sweat glands. So you have two types of glands. You have a muscle inside here that's called erector pili muscle, which is the one that pull the hair to make that goosebump appearance when your hair goes like this. Also, you have blood vessels and nerves within the derms. Now, I just mentioned that homeostasis is to keep and maintain constant internal environment, keep normal function and constant internal environment. This is generally speaking. How are you going to achieve that? To keep it within the normal range or keep it constant. Constant, I mentioned before, just to understand, it's not flat line, not constant like 100%, around. So it goes like waves like this. So anyway, but the question is, it's not a flat line. Like my body temperature is not 37 exactly all the time. It's not 98.6 exactly all the time. It goes up, down, up, down, up, down. It goes up, bring it back down. It goes down a little bit, bring it back up. This is good enough to call it constant. Now the question is, how did they know? And how do your body know that something is changing? And how are you going to correct it? Which are the tools that the homeostatic mechanisms use to keep everything stable in your body? Negative feedback is the most important tool. What's a negative feedback? Negative feedback is a negative response to a stimulus that's coming to me. What do you mean? Here is what I mean. If it is getting cold, your skin will get cold. Your body temperature will start to drop from 98.6 to whatever, 98.4, 0.3, whatever it is. If it goes down, you are going to activate the heating unit of your body, shivering a little bit, increasing the metabolic processes, metabolism to produce more heat. You're going to produce heat anyway, and then you bring it back normal. So the reaction that you did is negative to the stimulus. What was the stimulus? drop in the body temperature. And what's your reaction? Increasing the body temperature. So aren't you doing the opposite to correct? The temperature goes down, your negative reaction is to bring it back up. If the temperature goes up, your negative reaction is to bring it back down. So you're doing the opposite. Your reaction is the opposite of the stimulus or opposite of the signal that's coming to you. pH, acidity, alkalinity, if it goes up, negative feedback, bring it back down. If it goes down, negative feedback, bring it back up, and so on. The allergy is acting up. So what would you do if it's getting colder? I'm going to raise the temperature back. So you're doing the opposite, negative feedback. How are you going to do that? Shivering. Okay, how about if it's getting hot? What are you going to do? I'm going to activate the sweat glands. You sweat more, you lose heat to cool down your body temperature. I'm going to also vasodilate the blood vessels. And this is why you see your skin is getting pinkish colored because blood vessels dilate. The blood that's more warmer inside will go to the surface to lose its heat and so on. This is called negative feedback. So here it is, an example. When it is getting hot, you're exercising, it's getting hot. What's your feedback? Bring it back down. Negative response to the stimulus. How can you bring it back down? Sweat. Another negative feedback. By sweating, you're losing body water. Your negative feedback is to drink, to gain. You're losing, and your reaction is to gain. The opposite. We call that negative feedback. Next system is a digestive system. By the way, we will have a lot of details when you go next to AP1, AP2. We will discuss all the details. This is just an introduction about all these systems to just have an idea, and then in future semesters or in future classes, you will get all the details. So, but for the digestive system, what's the digestive system? Digestive system is two parts. The first part is the alimentary canal, the canal that starts from your mouth going all, it's a canal, a tube, a canal that have a cavity inside. It's a hollow organ, all of it, alimentary canal. This canal starts from the mouth all the way to the anus. It's the whole thing is one tube, one canal. So it goes mouth, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, until the anal opening or the anus outside. So it enter from the mouth and exit from the anus. All of this is one canal, one tube. We call that alimentary canal. However, there are other organs that are associated with it. Like I said the integumentary system is the skin and other organs related, hair, nail, glands, and so on. How about the digestive system? It's the alimentary canal plus other organs added to it, like liver, like pancreas, and so on. Um, so when you ingest the foods into your mouth, you're going to mechanically digest, like break it down a little bit, and then it goes to the esophagus that will take it to the stomach. You do more digestion, and you break it down further, and so on. You go step by step, and then you go to the intestine when you absorb, and so on. So digestion and absorption is the main function of the digestive system. So here is the alimentary canal again, start from the mouth, which is called the oral cavity, and goes all the way down pharynx, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, until you go all the way to the anus at the end. But here it is, if you're eating like this, you go to the oral cavity, and then you go to the pharynx. But there is something happening here. When you go to the pharynx, when the foods, like you put it in your mouth, you chew it a little bit, you chew it for some time. So you do a mechanical breakdown, you break it down, and you're about to swallow. It's about to go down to the esophagus. It go to the pharynx first. But the thing is, when it go to the pharynx is three parts. This part behind the nose is called nasopharynx. Behind the oral cavity is called oropharynx. And here behind your larynx, which is this, your thyroid and the cartilage here. This is called laryngopharynx. So if you eat, it goes down. Why it doesn't go in the front to the larynx, going to the air, to the respiratory system? Because there is a structure here that's called the epiglottis. Fortunately, that we have it, that when you swallow, it will close so that the food actually go to the esophagus, doesn't go to the air. When you say somebody's like aspirating, I was drinking and then I start to cough, cough, cough. What happened? Well, maybe you're talking while you're drinking or eating, and if you talk, this epiglottis, which is it's like this, epiglottis is closing the entrance to the larynx, to the air. When you talk, you have to open it. If you open it, maybe some water gets in, and you cough, cough, cough until you get rid of it. What's after the esophagus? So here after this, you have oral cavity, pharynx, and then starting from here, this will be the esophagus. What's after the esophagus? You have stomach, small intestine, large intestine, all the way until the anus is here. But what's happening? Esophagus, you go to the stomach. How does it move from the esophagus to the stomach? How does it move from the stomach to the small intestine? How does it move from the small intestine to the large intestine? We call that peristalsis. Peristalsis. This contraction like this. Like if this is the esophagus here, it goes like this is the food and you go like this. Push, 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 push until it go to the stomach. So this is called peristalsis. Then the food go to the stomach. What are you going to do to the stomach? We're not discussing all the details, just general idea. What's going to happen in the stomach? The stomach is going to add its juice. And when you say juice, it's fluid containing a lot of things. We're not going to discuss the details, but it contains, most importantly, enzymes, acid, we know the stomach acid, different types of enzymes like pepsin that digest proteins and so on. Um, so remember when you put the food in your mouth and you chew it and you break it down, this is called mechanical digestion, mechanical or physical digestion. You break it down with your teeth, you move it with your tongue. This is called mechanical breakdown. When you put enzymes on the food, when you break it down first mechanically, you get like very tiny pieces. Not enough, not enough. These tiny pieces, you cannot absorb it to go inside your blood and go to the cells. You cannot. Still big. Even after I chew it and like chew it very good, yes, it's tiny particles, but not small enough to pass. You have to do something called chemical digestion. When you add enzymes, these tiny pieces will break down further and further and further until it become very small molecules that can enter and be absorbed. And we call this process, which follow the mechanical digestion, chemical digestion. So you break everything down to the building block. Like if I ask you like I want you to break down this wall, you start by breaking it down into like 3, 4, 5 pieces. Is that enough? No. I want you to break it down all the way and give me the bricks. So breaking down the wall into 3, 4, 10 pieces, this is the mechanical digestion. When you break even the pieces down more until you give me blocks, the blocks, the bricks. When you give me brick after brick after brick, now you give me the building unit. Same thing here. When you eat the carbohydrate, you break it down. Not enough. You break it down more to get the building block, which is like the bricks, which is like monosaccharides, fatty acid, amino acid, and so on. And then when you go to the small intestine, this is small enough, you're going to absorb. Absorb mean you take it from the lumen of the intestine inside to the blood, and the blood will send it to the different body tissues. And when you absorb and take all what you need, including water and nutrients and everything, the remaining part will move on in the large intestine. In the large intestine, you still absorb more, especially water, until you go all the way to the end, to this part here, which is called the rectum. And rectum means straight. Look how this is straight, not the anus at the end. this part here. This is called the rectum. So this rectum is remnants, everything that stay that you didn't absorb, water and any remnants will be stored temporarily in the rectum. So the rectum is obviously going to dilate to store until it is a suitable time and you have enough there. You go to the bathroom and you get rid of it through the next part, which is the anus. So rectum followed by anus. Anus is the last part. Before it is the rectum. What are you getting rid of? It is the waste products, which is called the feces. You're going to expel it by defecation, the process of defecation, which will go through the opening of the anus. And this opening, again, is guarded by two, I mentioned it before, guarded by two sphincters. Internal, which is involuntary. External, which is voluntary. If the internal open and you don't want to go to the bathroom, it's not time to defecate, you don't relax the external. So when you go to the bathroom, you actively, voluntarily relax the external one, and this is when you start the process of defecation, expelling the feces out. Now the accessory organs. The accessory organs are liver, and this is the largest accessory organ. You have the gallbladder, and you have the pancreas. These are the three most important ones. And these are going to secrete different digestive chemicals, including enzymes and bile and other things, and pour it into through ducts into the alimentary canal that we talked about. As the food is moving, you add different secretions to it. Um, so when you eat something, it will move down, as I mentioned before, and you're doing these processes here. Ingestion, ingest means you eat, you put the food in your mouth. Digestion is the next part. When you digest something means you break it down all the way and you go in two steps. You break down the wall in two steps. You break it down into different pieces. And then you break it down even more until you get the bricks. You do it in two different steps. Same thing. You get the food, you chew it. You break it down mechanically until you get the small particles. And then you do the chemical digestion by the enzymes. And this is when you break it down further into the building blocks. We call that chemical digestion. Why did you call it chemical digestion? Because you add, why do you call it chemical digestion? Because you add chemicals to it. Enzymes, yes, enzymes are chemicals. Enzymes are chemical compounds. So this is what you do. And then you absorb. What do you mean absorb? Mainly in the small intestine and part in the stomach and large intestine as well. But the major part is small intestine. Absorbing means you take these building blocks from the lumen of the intestine, take it deep into the blood. When it go to the bloodstream, it will go to the heart, it will go to the blood again, and it go to different cells to take their needs. And then elimination, which is the last part when you defecate and get rid of it. So here it is again, mechanical digestion is mechanically breaking down the food into smaller pieces. Not enough. The next is chemical digestion. You add chemicals, which is enzymes, in order to break it down even more until you get to the building blocks. And we call that breaking down these tiny parts, small pieces into the building block, which is the smallest. We call that hydrolysis. We will discuss that later on, hydrolysis. But basically, you're just breaking down the bonds between the building blocks. And let me go back to the example of the wall. If I ask you to do the mechanical breakdown, you push the wall and you break it down into 4, 5, 10 pieces. Now you get one of the pieces which contain like 4 or 5 bricks attached to each other, and you break in between the attachments to have bricks, single bricks. So you break down what's holding the bricks together to give me bricks at the end, the building units. Same thing here. You break down the food into small particles. The small particles, you add enzymes to do hydrolysis and break down the building blocks by cutting the link in between, and this link is called the bond. The bond. I'll give you an example here. Let me say I'm eating whatever. I'm eating any dessert, for example, which is carbohydrates and fats. But let's say it's something carbohydrate, bread. I'm eating bread. What are you going to do? I'm going to put the bread in my mouth. I will mechanically break it down. We call that mechanical digestion. I will end up having small pieces of the bread. Is that enough? No, it's too big. Even though it's to you, it looks too tiny, but it's not small enough to pass through the wall of the intestine and go into the bloodstream. So you need to add enzymes to break down these particles. So what are these particles? These particles are like disaccharides, short, small polysaccharide. So it's like if you compare to the bricks, 2 bricks, 5 bricks, 3 bricks, like this. And you break it down into the tiny bricks, which is monosaccharide. And this is your goal at the end. So look at this example here. This is a protein. What's a protein? It's a big chain of amino acids. So what's the building block of the protein? Amino acids. What's the building block of the carbohydrate? Monosaccharide. What's the building block of the fat? Fatty acids. So in this case, the protein is a huge chain of amino acids. So the wall is a huge structure of bricks. The protein is a huge structure of amino acids. If you cut in between these, first of all, you break down the protein into small pieces, and then you do the chemical breakdown, which is hydrolysis, and you cut this bond in between the different amino acids until you end up, look at this, one amino acid, one amino acid, one amino acid. If you have one amino acid, it can pass and you can absorb it. Then you're going to absorb, which is basically uptake. So if you look at this picture here, the like the amino acids, the building blocks, amino acid, monosaccharide, fatty acid will be here, and it is small enough to pass into this. These are the villi. So it will go in, and look at this inside. This is the blood. Will go into the blood here, and the blood will take it all the way to the body. At the end, again, this is the mouth, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, rectum, anus. At the end, you're going to eliminate, you're going to store in the rectum and then eliminate the feces through your um, through your through the anus, through the anal opening, or you have to relax the sphincters, and I mentioned that before. Um, um, so the next part is about after you absorb, what's going to happen? After you absorb, whatever you absorbed, which is these building blocks, monosaccharide in carbohydrate, amino acid in proteins, fatty acid in fats, these small particles, they will be absorbed as I showed you, and it will go inside. And then what? The blood will take it to the cells, and the cells need to eat. They need to take these building blocks like glucose, which is monosaccharide. I need to get that into the cells, and I'm going to break it down to get energy out of it. Otherwise, without energy, cells are going to die. So this is the ultimate goal, to get what you absorbed, like example, glucose, you send it all the way to the cells, and it will pass, leave the blood and go into the cells. The cells will take that glucose and will say, okay, good, I got some food here. And I need some oxygen to burn the glucose and get energy out of it. When I have energy, I'm all fine. I survive, I do all what I need. Um, so when you say you're going to break it down and to get the energy out of it, energy, which is the fuel, is in the form of what? Where do you store it? In the form of ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Adenosine triphosphate. Um, so what's adenosine triphosphate? Adenosine, adenosine, it's adenine and sugar, and three phosphates. Okay, adenosine, one phosphate, two phosphate, three phosphates. So this is adenine and sugar. We call this adenosine. You add one adenosine monophosphate, add one adenosine diphosphate, add one adenosine triphosphate. Usually you store the energy in between the phosphates. And if you need it, break down one phosphate, release the energy, use it, you end up having adenosine diphosphate or ADP. Now, the food that we're eating um, uh, should contain the essential nutrients. What do you mean essential nutrients? Here is what I mean. There are, when it comes to something like amino acid, fatty acid, there are some amino acids are called essential amino acids and non-essential amino acids. Essential fatty acids and non-essential fatty acids. What does that mean? Here is what it means. Your body can make a lot of amino acid. It can build it, and it cannot build some other types of amino acids, becoming essential. You have to take it from outside. You need all the types of amino acid. You're producing some. So you have to import from outside. Like if we like here in America, for example, if we have everything but we don't have oil, for example, we will get the oil from outside. Okay, or if you're producing oil but not enough, you will get some more from outside. So we're producing some amino acids. Since you produce it, I call it non-essential. And if that's the case, the ones that you do not produce become essential. So you have to eat it in the food. And this is why we always say food should contain essential nutrients. Exactly the same for fatty acids. Fatty acid, you produce some fatty acids, and the other, which is called non-essential, and others are called essential fatty acids. And when you get all the essential food that you need, you're going to use it inside your body to build different things. And some of it, you break it down to get energy and store it in the form of ATP. And the recommendations in order for that healthy diet, it should contain uh, all four plus the dairy. You have to have some grains, some protein, some vegetables, some fruits, and some dairy. Some of us will focus on something and forget, like some of us don't like the vegetables, don't like the fruits, some of us don't like proteins, or I don't drink milk, and so on. This is the perfect meal or the best meal that you can that's recommended to get all of these combined. And add to that water uh, and be physically active. These are the recommendations. But what is bad that you should try? It's never zero. Try to avoid sodium. If something contains high sodium, try to avoid it. If something that contains a lot of fat, try to avoid it. And try to avoid empty calories like the pop, the soda drinks, and these empty calories that just calories that doesn't do anything. Um, we call it the empty calories. So this is the recommendations for the healthy diet. Um, if we talk about the different things that's included inside the food, what's good about that? What should we get? If you eat something like this that contain essential amino acids, what are the essential amino acids that you do not make inside your body? And essential fatty acids, the fatty acids that you do not make inside your body become essential. And it should contain some minerals and some vitamins. What are the vitamins and what are the minerals? Remember, I talked about the enzymes. The enzymes are helpers of the chemical reactions. They help chemical reaction to accelerate the chemical reactions so that you can do the work faster with less energy and less time. These are the enzymes. Enzymes needs vitamins and minerals to work. The vitamins are organic nutrients that help the enzymes. We call it coenzymes. Minerals also needed for the enzymes, and we call that cofactors. But anyway, you need the vitamins and minerals like vitamin A, B, C, D, E, all these vitamins, K, all of these vitamins are needed for the work of different enzymes. Minerals like magnesium, like calcium, like other things, you also need it for the same reason. Okay, so the next part is um, some illnesses, some abnormalities that can happen, and some issues that can happen, whether this is due to infection or malfunction or whatever, things that can happen to the digestive system. Something like acid reflux. What's the acid reflux? You remember that inside your stomach, I told you that in the stomach you produce the gastric juice, and the gastric juice obviously contain enzymes and what? And acid. So if the contents of the stomach goes up to the esophagus, it shouldn't. There is a sphincter to prevent it. But if it goes up, it will burn the esophagus, and we call it heartburn. Heartburn is, we call it the acid reflux. Reflux. Reflux is you do a influx backward flux, which is instead of moving from the esophagus to the stomach, which should be it go from the stomach to the esophagus, causing heartburn. Heartburn is deceiving. It's not have nothing to do with the heart. It's just the esophagus is too close to the heart, so that's why they can say something like gallstone, something like the constipation. What's a constipation? It's constipation and diarrhea. What's a constipation and diarrhea? Simply, remember, I told you that this food is going to move down and you're going to take as much as you need to absorb it. If something happened and you're moving too fast, you don't have the time to take all what you need. You need to take the water and nutrients. So if something happened and it goes fast, like you eat something that's bad food, something that contains toxins, whatever, it's going to stimulate your intestine and it will go fast. You didn't have the time to take a lot of the water, which you take most of the water back. You absorb it. The water that you drink, you should absorb most of it and absorb the nutrients. If something happened irritating your intestine, it will go fast. You didn't have the time to take all this water, so you end up uh, losing the rest of the foods, which contain a lot of good things and containing a lot of water, and we call that diarrhea. On the other hand, if something happened that slowed down the intestine, so you keep the food inside your intestine too much and you take a lot of it, like you take the last drop of water out of it, you end up producing less feces that is solid. And we call that constipation. Other things are like ulcer, like you're losing part of the mucosal lining, inflammatory bowel disease, inflammation inside. Others are like obesity. Obesity is you go above the maximum of the weight, and the weight is different from person to person. There is a BMI. If you want to take a look at it, uh, the body mass index depend on how tall you are and your weight. You make a calculation, and if you go above that, you're overweight. If you go above that, it's called obesity. And obesity is horrible, not just because of the obesity itself. It's the obesity will lead to a lot of other issues. It can lead to diabetes. It will make the cells not responsive to insulin. It can lead to cancer. It lead to cardiovascular disease. Why? Because you have a lot of things that deposit in the wall of the blood vessels, making cardiovascular disease like hypertension and other things. On the other hand, there is malnutrition. And malnutrition is you do not get sufficient amount of food. Sometimes malnutrition is you don't get enough food. Sometimes you get enough food, but poor quality. Like in very poor countries, they do not have proteins at all. They don't have fruit. They can barely have something like bread and stuff like that. They eat and fill their stomach, but it's still malnutrition, because good nutrition is you get all your needs. I showed you that plate. Other eating disorders, something like anorexia nervosa, bulimia, anorexia nervosa, bulimia, or bulimia nervosa. I'm not going to go into the details. It's not needed from you. We're talking about biology. Just if you're interested to know for yourself, it's not a big part of this. But anorexia nervosa is anorexia, no rexia. What's rexia? It is the hunger sensation. You feel hungry. So if that's the case, you always feel that you're not hungry. And anorexia. No orexia. Um, so you don't have desire to eat. You lost your desire to eat because of an issue, a nervous issue, depression, or whatever it is. Bulimia is another thing. Some people are obsessed. They eat, and then they intentionally illicit vomiting. They vomit. They say, "Oh my God, I eat a lot. I'm going to gain weight. I have to vomit." They put their fingers inside and vomit. Anyway, it is not an essential part of this chapter, but it's worth mentioning. So that's it for this part. This is um, chapter 11, part one, and I will do part two. I will do another video for part two.